please feel free to do so. My name is Serena Chassaune. I'm an arts associate here at DCA. I will be joined by my coworkers Ben Espinosa, the grant manager, and Brenda Seha, an arts associate. As we're waiting for everybody to join, I'll just share a little bit about DCA. So our mission is to strengthen the quality of life in Los Angeles by stimulating and supporting arts and cultural activities, ensuring public access to the arts for residents and visitors alike. Our grants division operates with a modest budget of $4 million in a city of about 4 million people, which averages out to $1 per person. So we do our best to stretch that dollar. Currently, our portfolio includes over 350 grantees, most of which are part of this grant program. And for our top scoring applicants, we are able to provide an average of $10,000. This program supports a variety of local nonprofit groups in the region that deliver temporary, free, and low-cost arts and culture opportunities for the public. We are expecting this presentation to be about 2 hours long, fingers crossed. The first hour will be for basics, eligibility guidelines. The next half hour is going to be a walkthrough of our SurveyMonkey application platform. And then the last half hour is reserved for our Q&A section. So if you feel like you've submitted a question and it hasn't been answered yet, just be patient and we will do our best to get back to you at the end. Ben will be assisting me in answering any questions submitted because it can be a little challenging for me to see your questions as I'm going through. Yes, thank you for joining us today. And if you do have any questions at the end that aren't answered or you'd like to reach out to us, our email will be shared. But just at the front end, if you want to write it down, it's dca.grants@lacity.org. All right.
I'll add, folks, we please do take advantage of the chat feature to pose those questions. We'll do our best to respond to them as we get them, or we'll hold them because we know which sections are forthcoming, and we might hold them until a more opportune time to respond. And when submitting a question via the chat, I challenge folks, try to frame your question in a way that it can benefit others who are attending here. We have lots of small, mid-size nonprofit organizations here today. Welcome to everybody. So try to frame your questions in a way that it could serve others, because I'm sure everyone has some similar questions in mind.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So to begin, we're going to talk about program eligibility. The first is that your organization must have a nonprofit status with an arts and culture mission. So that means you must be a designated 501c3 with the IRS. And the exception to the rule about an arts and culture mission applies only for organizations that are doing an outdoor festival and will be collaborating with a festival producer or an arts organization to make the festival happen. Another eligibility requirement is that your organization must be based in LA County, and your project must take place in the city of Los Angeles. What we're looking for is projects that can be made bigger, stronger, and better with the resources of the DCA grant. And you must have the ability to provide existing metrics on the project and the audiences recently served. So what this means is you should be applying with the project that you have done in years in the past, and it's not a new idea or an idea that's still being workshopped. If you're a fiscally sponsored organization, you are unfortunately ineligible, with the exception of projects that are taking place under Community Partners, which is an LA City-based incubator. If you do fall under that category, it's best if you reach out to us and we can talk about specificities. If you're an individual artist, you're also ineligible to apply under this category, but I would encourage you to look at our artist residencies, which open later in the fall, which are our NEAR, co-op, and our COLA applications. A question that comes up is if your organization is able to submit more than one proposal. And this is allowed if one of your proposals is for the outdoor festival category, which we can talk about more as we move forward. Okay. Something to be mindful of as you're applying are the requirements that you have to meet if you are accepted or awarded a grant. I wouldn't be too stressed about these in the beginning. This is more so to prepare you. But one of those is that you must have insurance. The city has a robust risk management department that requires liability up to $1 million in damages and claims. And if you're working with youth, there may be a possible requirement for sexual misconduct insurance. Um, Another thing to consider is that our grant is a reimbursement grant. So rather than being given a check upfront and told to go wild, we do reimburse you at the end after we're able to gather the required documents and metrics. Um, Another thing that you will be required to have is um, the business tax registration certificate with the City of LA Office of Finance, and you must enroll in the city's Regional Alliance Marketplace for Procurement, also known as RAMP. Those two can be a little bit daunting, but I assure you that if you are awarded a grant, we do our best to assist you with those processes. Um, Another thing to note is that these grants are based on the City of LA budget, and our available funds may change, unfortunately. We understand that we are asking you to forecast activities taking place between July 1st, 2027 and June 30th, 2028, which is our fiscal year. So we are understanding that these are proposed projects, and we hope that you will understand that we are also working with a proposed budget. Um, Most likely, we are proud to say that we fund close to 50% of the proposal asks that we receive. So something to keep in mind is that as you're determining how much you would like to apply for your grant, is that we more often than not are only able to fund up to 50% of the ask.
I
Uh,
might add some clarifying notes there, folks. The numbers that we've shared thus far kind of are based on our recent historic funding levels for our grant program in the last 5 or 6 years. It's been kind of a steady flat level of around $4 million. Meanwhile, we get an increased number of applicants every year who request far more money than our city grant budget has allowed for. So based on historic numbers, folks who tend to rank at the very top of this competitive peer review process get close to about 50% of their grant ask. We do our best every year to advocate and ask our nonprofit colleagues throughout the region to ask their elected representatives to increase the cultural affairs budget so we can um, hopefully achieve a higher percentage of funding as compared to what we've seen in recent years. But all that to say, we are kind of operating in a space where we are forecasting and pitching projects and under optimistic, positive circumstances. So we say all this up front just to remind folks, as a government funder, we can never fund projects that you propose to us at 100% level, and to be willing to accept potentially lower than requested grant amounts at the end of the process.
That's a great segue for me diving into what it means when we say minimum one-to-one matching requirement. So, as a city funder, we never want to fund more than 50% of your project. This means that we are looking for you to raise as much, if not more, than your grant award with non-city sources. This can be a combination of in-kind donation, monetary donations, and other non-city sources. Could be county, could be state, could be other private funders. But at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that we're not paying for 100% or even more than 50% of your project. Okay. Before I jump into this, Ben, are there any questions?
Not at the moment. So
Okay.
let's talk about what kind of projects we can fund.
Perfect. So our first category is going to be our indoor artistic project. So what it means is that this is support for the production of free or low-cost public presentations where local professional artists, art instructors, arts business mentors, arts administrators, and other creative workers are engaged to perform roles that are commensurate with the skills, talents, and status described in their resumes and biographies. This year, we are accepting proposals in the disciplines of dance, music, theater, and transdisciplinary, so the traditional performance arts disciplines. Um, if you are considering applying in the disciplines that we are not doing this year, so this would be culture history, design visual arts, literacy, media arts, or traditional folk arts. Please know that we are very limited in what we will be offering for these off-cycle applications. There will be no more than 5 awards ranging between $3,000 and $5,000. So we would encourage you to really consider if that's the best use of your organization's capacity. But for this year, we are accepting dance, music, theater, and transdisciplinary. We often get questions about transdisciplinary. So this would look like projects that include 2 or more artistic disciplines or are sometimes considered avant-garde in their nature. Um, and then if you are part of the off cycle, we just ask that you come back next year. Um, most of our applications fall under this category of indoor artistic project. So this would include uh, even things like film festivals or theater festivals, things that often take place indoors. And also online projects would be considered an indoor artistic project.
I will add most of the folks in attendance in today's webinar will probably be submitting an indoor artistic project proposal within these 4 major artistic disciplines. This is, as Serena mentioned earlier, this will be the year we're convening all the various community experts within these artistic disciplines, which is why we place a heavy emphasis on proposals within these artistic disciplines. We are not convening panelists this year in those non-performing arts focused art forms, which is why we have very, very limited funding opportunity for those this cycle. Folks with one of these what we call off-cycle proposals might consider waiting until next year in our odd numbered calendar cycles when we do convene those panel experts, when determining whether or not it's worth applying this year versus next.
Thank you. Okay, so the other category is going to be our outdoor cultural presentations or festivals, parades. To our definition, the festival would be an outdoor event featuring a thematic set of presentations of multiple non-affiliated groups, acts, and artists. And this takes place at a single public site. It could be a set of adjacent streets, a public park, or a public plaza over one day or over one weekend. Generally, festival projects are annual or seasonal, quarterly, with the purpose to promote cultural expression and or neighborhood cohesion. We have our festivals divided into 3 different tiers based on attendance. So the first tier would be attendance with fewer than 500 attendees in the prior year. The second tier would be between 500 and 2,000 attendees. And then the final tier is more than 2,000 attendees. And this is why we ask that when you apply, you have these metrics from the last time you hosted this project. A few things to note for our festival applicants is that you must have a minimum annual operating budget of at least $20,000. And any event with less than 3 separate groups performing is considered to be a concert rather than a festival. Something else to note here is that we are no longer doing art walks as part of our festival category. And this is a little bit of a risk management thing because we're the city. So anything where people are encouraged to move about outside, we would discourage you from framing your project proposal around that. Please note that festival events with artistic rosters that change less than 29% in participants are not eligible for DCA support. So this would look like if your festival invites the same selected artists from year to year. We are trying to see a diverse selection of artists as your event grows. To be specific, we're looking for 30 to 40% new artists. Did you want to add something, Ben?
Yes, I think it's worth double emphasizing DCA's unique definition of an outdoor festival parade for our grant category. We know we work with a lot of nonprofit arts organizations in the region who produce terrific outdoor events. oftentimes highlighting their existing staff, existing artists, existing performers, musicians affiliated with their organization. It's very important in this particular project category that you take note of our requirement that you use this outdoor platform, outdoor stage, this outdoor setting to showcase a wide array of performers, musicians, and other artists who are not affiliated with your organization. So we that number of three or more, four or more unaffiliated groups is a good check to see if indeed the outdoor event you're envisioning falls under our outdoor festival parade category. Regarding the art walk limitation, it is true. Risk management, City of LA is not inclined to sponsor events where you have folks who will be asked to cross sidewalks, cross streets, um, engage in self-guided navigation around a street corridor. It's really become a risk management concern for the city. So if indeed you are proposing an outdoor event that involves some sort of self-guided movement around set of streets, focus on a single corridor or a single spot in that map where you have streets appropriately permitted closed off to traffic, so there's no concern about, vehicles entering or leaving. And think about how that specific spot of this larger outdoor event can be the DCA project that you are proposing. Um, for example, if there is an outdoor art walk that spans, several blocks of a particular neighborhood, is there a spot on the map there that you can zero in where there's a main stage where you can showcase four or five or even more musicians, performers, and unaffiliated acts? Those are things to consider in this category.
Thank you. Something that I also want to mention is that if you are having youth artists at your performance and they are unpaid, we ask that they be mentioned in a sidebar rather than mentioned as your main paid artists. DCA funding is proportioned to support adult jobs, whereas learning experiences would be considered a separate metric. Okay. So our other project categories are the sequential arts in-school learning, culminating in after-school public events, also known as SailCape. And this is projects that involve series of sequential standards-aligned youth arts education activities that take place during the school day and must culminate with at least one community-marketed public event taking place outside of school hours. Arts education proposals must be accompanied by a curriculum and 2 sample lessons to demonstrate the deep learning conveyed in a single set of sessions. And then we also have the field advocacy and sector learning, which we have abbreviated as FASL. And this category supports business training, business association networking, field-specific conferences, and arts industry advocacy, wherein artists and arts managers are learning rather than performing. Applicants in this category do not themselves present artistic projects to the public, but instead they coordinate field-building activities or forums. We don't receive very many SailCape applications because of the stringent standards for the California arts known as the VAPA standards. So please make sure that when you're applying, these are things that you're considering. And another thing to note about SailCape is that the culminating event must be open to the public, and where we may think of a public school as a public space, it's really not open to everybody. So we would ask that your culminating event take place somewhere where someone could attend even if they don't have a child enrolled in the school, or think of it as like a public program rather than an education performance.
Great. Serena, we have some good questions here about eligible project types. So if you allow me, I can see if I can respond to these one at a time. If you go back one slide, Serena, to our festivals, we have a great question here about would an outdoor festival parade project with a holiday theme like Christmas or Veterans Day be eligible? And the answer is yes. Very important to consider, though. You're talking to a funder in arts and culture. So imagine a Veterans Day parade or festival arts isn't necessarily obvious in just with that thematic branding. So I would challenge you to work with someone either in-house. Maybe you have a board member who's a festival producer. Maybe you have a board member who's a culture bearer, tribal elder, or another arts expert who can help curate arts and cultural experience as part of this event. If that expertise is not in-house, it would be required for you to work with the logical nonprofit arts partners in the neighborhood and the community who can help you build and curate an arts and cultural experience. In other words, an event like a Veterans Day parade is great if there's an element of it where there's a marching dance group as part of it, or if there's a professional marching band that you'd be paying, if there's going to be a main stage where the parade culminates and there is a lineup of musicians, bands, and other creative professionals that you'd be asking us to help you cover the cost of. So those events are good, but think about the arts and cultural element of it because that is where your grant ask should be earmarked toward. And I'd caution against branding events for DCA support around things like a Christmas parade or an Easter Day celebration, things that might be viewed by peer panel as too religious in nature. Think about how you might explore more non-religious branding, like a holiday event, springtime event for things of that nature. We have a question here regarding off cycle and on cycle. If you go back one more slide or a couple more slides, Serena, about the artistic indoor artistic projects. All right. So question is even year versus odd numbered year. We don't look at your fiscal year regarding that. We look at the calendar year we're in. We are in calendar year 2026. In even numbered calendar years, this is when DCA convenes peer panel experts from the community in in the performing arts disciplines, namely dance, music, theater, and transdisciplinary arts. So it's an even numbered calendar year. We're convening those particular experts. Hence, we want to see lots of proposals in those categories because we have this year the panel experts to read them. Uh, in odd numbered calendar years, such as 2027, next year, that will be the year we're going to convene the experts in film media, design, visual arts, literary arts, culture history, traditional and folk arts. So depending on what calendar you're in and what artistic discipline your project is focused on, that's how you determine whether or not you're an on-cycle or off-cycle proposal. Um, it's calendar year 2026, even numbered year, performing arts discipline. If you're a performing arts organization, which most of the folks in this space I think are, you are submitting an on-cycle proposal. An off-cycle proposal is one where you're submitting an artistic project that's not in any of these targeted artistic disciplines. I hope that helps clarify it. We have a question here regarding operating budget and operating funds. We might save that conversation for later when we talk about the maximum allowable grant request. As a quick answer to the question, an operating budget for us is how much your organization brought in revenue through your range of earned income, uh, contributed income from other funders, including government, philanthropic, or private sources, any earned income through ticket sales, membership fees, membership dues over your entire organization fiscal year. We look at that cash revenue. In fact, we call it specifically total revenue less in kind. That's the number that we're looking at. It's oftentimes reported for larger nonprofits in your 990 as your total revenue. It's important that it's a number that excludes any donated in-kind services or materials, though. So more detail into that. That's a key number that to keep in your back pocket as you decide how much to ask DCA of funding.
Thank you. All right. So some examples of unallowable projects and
Could we go back
activities.
one more slide through? Pardon me. We have a couple more questions regarding the project types, and these are great questions, so it's not a bad thing to go over it a little bit more. We have a question regarding sale kit projects. Should they fall within the artistic disciplines, dance, music, theater, transdisciplinary arts? The answer is in order to submit In an on-cycle proposal, yes. So we expect to see a lot of proposals this year for dance education residencies working with middle school kids, music education classes working, with a range of high school students that culminates in a public concert, uh, choral programs. Those are the ones that will be read by our performing arts panels. If on the other hand, you're thinking about a Sail Cape project emphasizing literary arts, poetry, or design visual arts, you would be submitting a proposal this year with an off-cycle artistic discipline, and so would be subject to the reduced funding limits and only 1 year of funding consideration. Um, let's see here. Um, Additional questions here about percentage number of new artists required to participate in the proposed project. Okay, so the first part of this question is regarding our outdoor festival category, where we want you to propose an outdoor event, outdoor festival, showcasing a wide array of unaffiliated acts, remember. We expect to see at least 30% of that planned roster be new as compared to the last time you did this. So let's say you did the music festival, last year, you had a lineup of 10 bands. We would expect that your proposed list of bands the next time you're going to do that same music festival will show us at least, let's see here, 30% of 10. What is that? We want to see three new bands in your roster of 10. So you're showing us at least a 30% uh, change of artists for your next iteration. Question regarding an indoor artistic project. Our organization our uses includes the word festival. Aha. So yes, that's a great question, and thank you for asking it. It is in fact not uncommon for a lot of our indoor artistic projects to feature events produced by nonprofits that they market and promote to the public as a festival. Playwriters Festival, a theater festival, dance festivals. If it's happening indoors on the stage, it's an indoor artistic project for us, even if you are showcasing a wide array of unaffiliated acts. So that's an important distinction. The vast majority of our artistic projects take place indoors, and even though you're calling it a festival, it should be in here if it's taking place indoors for us. All right, I think we got a good flurry of questions answered here. If there's no more, let's pass it back on to you, Serena, to talk to us about the funding no-nos.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So first would be private invitation only events. So this includes fundraisers, press events, galas, or things taking place in private residences. A big thing to us is public access. Another unallowable project would be something that is brand new or a pilot initiative. If that does sound like something that you're proposing, I would encourage you to go back to our grants website and check out the Public Space Activation Fund. And maybe that's a better home for you, and that should be opening later in the year. Another thing that's not allowed are expensive activities. So you are able to charge for access to your events as long as it's low cost, which is about the price of a movie ticket. Of course, we love when things are free, but we understand that that's not always possible. Something else we consider is the project cost per head. So if you have a festival and you have 10,000 people show up, but it's a very expensive festival over, let's say, I don't know, festivals are really expensive these days. Let's say over $800,000. That would mean a very expensive cost per head basis for us. So we just want you to be mindful of also the quality. So um, if you're doing one choral event and you have 100 people show up versus a series of maybe 10 different concerts in a library, that's going to be a better quality per cost for us. Or if your participant walks away having learned something or engaged with the art versus just watching. So just please be mindful of your cost per head basis. And this does also come up when you're calculating your allowable grant amount to ask. Something else that's not allowed are art contests and competitions. We very much encourage an everybody wins type of event. So if you are doing something that's competitive in nature, we would ask you to focus your project on a showcase of all of the talents or a showcase of selected talents rather than the competition itself. We are also not able to fund projects that are primarily religious in nature or intent, which Ben had mentioned in regard to the Christmas or Easter festival. This does not mean that you cannot utilize religious spaces for your projects. That's absolutely allowed as long as it's still open and available for all to attend. We're also not able to fund open mics or open call projects where you're unable to list and describe the artists who would be involved at the time of proposal submission. As part of your application, it's very important to our panelists to be able to see what artists you're going to be featuring. Um, and then finally, project where DCA funds are earmarked towards ineligible expenses such as travel, food, and hospitality, or insurance, cash prizes, awards, capital improvements, or purchasing depreciable assets. So this could be studio equipment, lighting, electronics, things of that sort. Okay. Something that we have a lot of questions about, or is a really common pitfall in the application process, is not distinguishing between project versus program. So DCA is a project funder. This means that we are looking for something that is limited in time scope. So some questions to ask yourself is, are you proposing something that's 7 to 12 months long, which would mean that it's not a project for us. We're looking for something that can take place between 6 months. And then are you having a hard time fitting all of your activity details into a 500-word project narrative? We ask that you really limit the scope of what you're describing so that our panelists can have a clear idea of the theme and topic of your project. And then your proposal's total budget should not be similar to your organization's operating budget. Um, and then using our allowable request calculator, see if your proposal's total budget is only a tiny portion. I'm sorry, using our DCA allowable request calculator, you find that the amount is only a tiny portion of your proposal's total budget. And then if you're planning to move your project to 5 or more council districts, you're probably thinking about a program instead of a project. So please identify a subset of your planned activities or what would be considered your programs into a project for a more focused and strategic DCA project. Okay, so some of our priorities are that your project be free or low-cost arts activities and events that are open to the public, and that these projects develop jobs for artists and creative workers, and that these projects have a capacity enrollment and attendance that serve their constituencies. Think local, aware of the neighborhood, um, relevant to the community. And we love to see collaborations between arts organizations and non-arts social service organizations, and that events and activities take place at a wide range of community sites or venues, especially within our arts underserved LA City Council districts, which we'll talk about more in the future.
I'd like to highlight please consider these priorities. If you find yourself in that dilemma of looking at your offerings and you're feeling like you're not at a project, you're thinking about a program versus a project. See if you can narrow down a subset of what you do over the course of a year, and so you can isolate the specific activities that you think that can respond to our priorities as a funder. If you're doing events, all over the city, is there a subset of your work in the San Fernando Valley or in South LA where we prioritize that you can frame a project around? Are you is there a subset of your programming over the year that happens to be very partner intensive, where you're working with a range of community service agencies, housing agencies, reentry programs, youth and family services organizations? Maybe that segment of your work can be a great component of a DCA project. Do you do a wide range of activities over the course of a year where some of it is super volunteer heavy, where you're not really finding that you're paying a lot of creative professionals or artists to carry out that work, versus another portion of your year's work where you are paying lots of artists, creative workers, in that initiative? That latter element can be a better suited concept for a project for us. So consider our priorities to help guide you define a strategic project for DCA.
Thank you. Um, when you're considering free and low cost, we want to emphasize that this is not uh, to the cost of producing the event. We want to see that the estimated cost of producing your event is practical and logical and accurate to how much it costs to fully produce your organization's project. And including a 20% of overhead business expenses is very acceptable for your artistic project proposal. Proposals should also estimate 60% of the artists to be local. We are a municipal funder, so we want to see that you're activating local artists. This could also be arts managers, people who work in sound and tech. Uh, we are also able to do national and international artists as long as they do not comprise more than 40% of your total projected project.
Yeah.
Another tip is that by naming the theme and site and relative dates of your activities, this will help our panelists better understand the project that you're pitching and be able to really paint the picture of the project as they're reading through the rest of your details. If your project tours, like Ben mentioned, or takes place in multiple council districts, please be strategic about which council district or sites you're including in your project. And this is also helpful because if you're including all of your council districts, this dilutes the relevance to community in your application. And we want to be able to see that the project that you're proposing is significant to the community that you're serving and that you have a relationship there. Okay, so this is a map of the city of Los Angeles. Some things that I'd like to highlight that we get a lot of questions about is the city of Santa Monica is not an eligible site for your project. Neither is the city of Beverly Hills or the city of West Hollywood. Some areas that we would love to see people focus on are this region in the valley. So 7, 6, 12, 3, 11. And then also 8 and 9. Our arts moderately served districts are 1, 2, 4, 10, and 15. And then our arts generously served districts are 5, 13, and 14. So kind of like this belt here. Okay, if you need help locating the address of your site and which council district it's in, there is a resource for this on our website. There we go. I'm going to leave that there just in case someone wants to grab it. Okay, perfect.
You got in the chat box too. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so this is the juicy one. This is where we start to get into the financials. So DCA requires small, mid-sized, large, and extra large organizations to submit their 2 most recent years of data to the Data Arts Report and complete this organization financial and programmatic profile. You may be more familiar with the data arts profile. We are trying to phase out of that to something that is maybe a little bit more accessible or understandable for our emerging organizations. But it is designed to pretty much mimic what's there. So if you already have that information, it's a pretty much copy and paste type situation. If these dates are not relevant to you, there is an option to edit the fiscal years that are listed to match your most recent completed years. We do ask that you use your most recent completed years because old information is not useful and may hurt your organization's application. If that is the case and you have no option, then please utilize the notes section to provide some context for the panelists.
Yeah. I'll add a clarifying note. We understand that many organizations operate on the fiscal year that mirrors the city's own. So your fiscal year will have just ended in June 30th, for example. It's quite possible your organization hasn't finalized the specific data and numbers that you see on this form. If you don't have finalized numbers yet, we'd rather that you fill out this form for the fiscal years you do have finalized numbers for. So in that example, it would be best that you fill out this form showing fiscal years 23, 24, and 25 because your 26 numbers are not yet ready. Or you might be a calendar year organization and your 26 is certainly not yet done at all. So do utilize that special tab at the bottom to modify those fiscal years and the headers so that it best reflects the data you have on hand. But the note from Serena about data that's too dated can be a jeopardy because most of the applications that we're going to get this year will, at the very least, have their 2025 numbers. So if you're thinking about submitting a proposal where you have only 2024 or 23 as your latest years, it can look kind of dated to our panelists and might raise concerns.
Thank you, Ben. If you already have access to your Data Arts Funder report and the DCA report is still there, you are able to submit that in lieu of this form as we transition out of the Data Arts report. If you're an emerging organization with less than a $20,000 operating budget, or you're a recently incorporated 501c3 with more than 1 year, but less than 2 years of reports, then you are welcome to submit a filed 990 with the IRS in lieu of a data arts report. Or if you're a non-arts organization applying for a festival, then you can also submit the 990 report in place. Okay. So max allowable requests and the one-to-one match requirement. As I mentioned earlier, this is a grant that does not fund more than 50% of your project. And that we request that you match us with non-city funds. So this can be cash or a combination of cash and in kind, or county or state or federal. And we just don't want to see like a double dipping. So maybe from us and then a city council member and then a neighborhood council. Those are all in the same pot. So please make sure that you're aware of that. I also wouldn't maybe stress about it too much in the beginning. This is a requirement once you're awarded that we just want you to be aware of as you're applying. So for the emerging arts organization, this would be a very small nonprofit arts organization with an operating budget of less than $20,000. I previously mentioned that this category would be able to submit the 990 in lieu of the program, in lieu of the programmatic profile. So if you're a recently incorporated organization with fewer than 2 years, but more than one, you may request between 1,500 and 3,000 for an artistic project, with requests accounting for no more than 50% of the total project budget. There's also the category for small organizations, which would be organizations with an operating budget between 10,000 and 100,000 in its most recently completed fiscal year, in which case you can request up to 20% of the last completed fiscal year budget, up to a maximum of $10,000, with requests accounting for no more than 50% of the total project budget. Then no more than 50% of the total project budget is going to be for every single category. And then we have the mid-size organization, which is an operating budget greater than $75,000 in its most recently completed fiscal year, in which case you can request up to 10% of your last completed fiscal year budget to a maximum of $40,000. Then we have large and extra large budget organizations. With budgets consistently greater than 800,000 or 10 million or greater, may request up to 4% of its most recently completed fiscal year, with a maximum of $80,000. The outdoor festivals and parades, the primary applicant must be a nonprofit organization that leads the organizing, hosting, and promoting of a thematic set of presentations by 4 or more groups, which may include the host organization during one day or weekend at a single outdoor address or street corridor. And like I mentioned, these are split up into tiers. So tier 1 is able to request up to 6,000 with 500 attendees. Tier 2 is up to 15,000, as long as you have between 500 and 2,000 attendees. And then Tier 3 up to 4,000, as long as you have 2,000 or more in-person attendees.
All right, let's pause there for a second, Serena. We have some key questions here regarding finances. So this is a good time to explain what we mean by operating budget. Another way to think of your operating budget is your total revenue less in kind over the course of your organization's last completed fiscal year. So let's say you're a nonprofit organization that operates in the calendar year. So if you take a look at your organization's total cash revenues, total revenue less in kind from January 1, 2025 to December 31, 2025. If you take account of all the various grants you got from the government, federal, state, local, county, from private philanthropy, from individual board donations, private donations, earned income from selling tickets to your shows, selling passes to your festivals, membership dues. If you add up all that cash revenue over the course of that 12-month period, aligned with your fiscal year, that's what we mean by an operating budget. Okay. Operating budget for us, think of it as shorthand as your cash revenue for the year. Hope that helps explain that. If you go into the next slide, Serena, we have a question regarding 50% of the total budget. So that's a great question because it highlights DCA's one-to-one matching requirement. So imagine you are doing a series of let's call it you're doing a dance festival over the course of a weekend, indoor artistic project, but we're calling it a dance festival. Let's take on that naming challenge, that naming difficulty for us. So let's say you're doing a dance concert festival at a performing arts venue in South Los Angeles. The cost of doing that weekend long series of showcases costs, let's call it $60,000. Your grant ask of us can never be more than 50% of that, $30,000 in this example, because we expect that you will come up with $30,000 or more from other non-city sources. Let's say you're going to match our $30,000 DCA grant ask with $20,000 in LA County money, $5,000 in board contributions, and another $5,000 in anticipated ticket sales. So in that case, in that example, you're matching our $30,000 grant ask, your $30,000 grant ask with $30,000 with other sources. The DCA grant request is no more than 50% of that total project budget. Okay, I think we got one question here regarding where do I find fiscal year budget on tax returns? There's unfortunately, Charles, there's no one specific spot that's consistent across all organizations. It's really a question you need to bring up with your nonprofit board and to take a look at the finances for the organization over the last completed 12-month fiscal year. Um, there is on the IRS 990 return. There is a field there for total revenue for the organization that takes out the in-kind contributions. That might be the closest thing that's consistent across most of our nonprofits. That can be a good, uh, at least a ballpark figure where your organization's at. That's certainly what we do in our end. If we're on just trying to quickly assess whether if you get a phone call from an organization, we'll look up your 990 from the last filing that you did with the IRS and look at that total revenue number. It's not necessarily the exact dollar number that will show up on your org profile form, but it's a close estimator for where you're probably at. What if our cash revenue was not much? Well, that's a good question, and that's why we're proud to support a wide range of nonprofits in our grant program. We support tiny emerging arts organizations with cash revenues of less than $20,000 to organizations 10x the size of our grant budget entirely. So we support the whole gamut, and you can see that spectrum of organization size on this slide at the moment. So if when you say by not much, I'm thinking you're probably falling under our emerging arts organization category. If you take stock of all those cash revenue sources over the course of a 12-month period, it's less than 20K. What that means then is that you are potentially eligible to submit a proposal as an emerging arts organization with a very modest grant ask. So long as you've done that project at least once before, it's a way for us to support your work. We have a question here regarding projects and programs. Could a season of performances constitute a project, wherein each performance is an individual program? If I'm understanding correctly, would it be a problem if individual programs take place at various venues throughout LA County? Um, a season of performances can constitute a project. Imagine you are a theater company and you have 2 seasons of shows production runs that you do over the course of a 12-month period. You might zero in on one season of those shows and that could be a single production or maybe two. Um, but even when zeroing in on only one or two productions, there's an opportunity to be even more specific about what you want to define as a DCA project. Maybe you do a production run where a big portion of your production run is where you're charging expensive tickets. You're charging folks $50 per person to see the show. $50 for us is probably too expensive to fall under our low cost definition. So maybe you're asking DCA for funding to help underwrite the costs of those tickets so that you can arrive at an average ticket price for everybody of less than $20 per person. Or maybe you are specifically asking for DCA funding to underwrite the pay what you wish weekend matinees of that production run. There's many opportunities to slice and dice your season of offerings into a very strategic DCA project. I hope that answers your question. Oh, regarding various venues throughout LA County. Um, so that's a great question because we know we support a range of nonprofits who do work not at a single venue, but they tour the region. They do services and presentations within LA City and beyond. Maybe they go into Santa Monica, Culver City, um, Altadena, etc. So one of the easiest ways to kind of like filter out your services for a DCA project is to immediately take out anything that takes place outside of the city of Los Angeles because we can't fund those. We are a municipal funder. This grant program is funded through the transient occupancy tax, bed taxes collected at hotels and motels in the city of LA, and the funding needs to go back to the city of LA. So that's one way to kind of like narrow it down. If after doing that next step, you're still finding you're doing lots of services throughout the city of LA across those 15 council districts that we showed a map of earlier, there's an opportunity here to be more strategic about where you want to focus your DCA project. We highlighted several council districts here where there are comparatively fewer arts opportunities, traditional art spaces, and arts providers. So if it's in your interest to focus a DCA project in the San Fernando Valley, in the third, 12th, 6th, and 7th districts, neighborhoods like Canoga Park, Van Nuys, Panorama City, Sunland Tujunga, where there are far fewer arts and cultural opportunities compared to the center of the city, where we have some of our largest institutions, for example. So those are some ways to help you kind of like take stock of all the amazing work you do over the course of a year and try to narrow it down into a specific DCA project. Okay, I think we got most of the questions responded to there. Let's
Okay.
jump into
Timeline.
our timeline. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So step one would be to register for and log into your SurveyMonkey Apply account. That is where you will find your application and submit it. The application is due the last Friday of the month, which is August 28th, 2026. Um, in a bit, Ben will walk through what that platform looks like. And then step three is that we do require a hard copy of your application and a signed certification form, which you'll find at the end of your application on SurveyMonkey, be mailed to the DCA grants office, postmarked by September 2nd, 2026. Um, and then in May or June of 2027, we'll send the award notification. It's a chunk of time because we organize our panels and our panels review all of the applications and then reconvene to discuss. And then step 5 is between July 27 to June 2028. Your projects that are selected must take place between this time period, which is the city's fiscal year. Okay. From here, I'm going to switch to our microsite, which looks like this, where I'll talk about a couple different things. Okay. So from here, I do want to emphasize that this is an incredibly important web page for you to review. Um, this is a summary of many of the things that we've covered today and also has some really important links like the allowable grant request calculator and the Excel sheet for your organizational, financial, and programmatic profile. So if you have not already, please take the time to review this page. And next, I'd like to show you the panel review process. Okay. So this is very important for you to look at and to keep in mind as you're filling out your application. This is what our panelists will be referencing as they're reviewing your applications. So the first being your administrative capability. This would be the experience or caliber of your organization's key leadership, which is determined using the bios and resumes that are included. This is also based on your organizational profile finances, which display your organization's capacity to deliver the project that's being proposed. Next, we have your artistic merit, which is also determined using your artistic samples or the list of artists that you're going to be engaging with. And then geography and demographics, which is where the DCA team has the opportunity to kind of play a hand in your ranking. So this is really important to us. As we've mentioned several times, we want to see that your projects are engaging areas that are arts underserved, and we have certain priority areas. This also includes partnerships with non-arts organizations, like Ben mentioned, could be social justice organizations, community centers, and then next would be your ideas and intention. So this is deciding if your project is innovative or contains exciting ideas, is something that isn't seen a lot in the other applications. And then impact is the extent of fulfilling your organization's mission as well as fulfilling our funding priorities, and whether or not your project creates measurable impact for your community. And then relevance is the connection drawn between your project, your audience, your artists, and DCA. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to pass the baton to Ben to give you a tour of the SurveyMonkey Apply website.
Great. All right, so give me a moment here. So switch screens. I have a question here, a good question regarding brand new projects as they relate to something like, and we'll have lots of, performing arts producers here. What are you talking about brand new? We're going to premiere a brand new musical theater production. It's never been done before. How could we how could we pitch this if it's a brand new show? That's a great question because when we say brand new initiative, think about it more as the project concept that you're coming to us with. If you're a theater company, you're in the business of producing theater and presenting it to the public. That's the project concept that you have one or more likely many years of experience doing. So, your proposal is all about, we are a local theater. We produce these shows. This is how we go about selecting our shows. This is how we go about commissioning a new play. And this is what we're going to present. Last year we did this. This coming year in our proposal, we're going to do this. That is, you're iterating on the project concept you have one or more years of experience doing. Contrast that to, say, you're a theater company. You're in the business of mounting, plays, and you want to do a production run of this new play, a world premiere play, and you're gonna make it available to the public for your low cost. That's your experience. What if you're coming to us with a concept of We want to do a playwriting workshop series when we're convening, emerging playwrights to work with established, dramaturgs and other producers to work on their craft, so there can be some peer-to-peer learning, and we're going to premiere some do stage readings of these samples of their emerging work. If you haven't done that concept once before, then you start to hit this eligibility limitation of you can't tell us about the last time you did this playwriting workshop series. You can't share a video of the stage readings of the emerging playwrights' work. That's where you can be in a jeopardy of proposing something that you haven't had an experience doing before. So I hope that helps clarifies things. We want you coming to us with a project that you've done before, that it's not necessarily the specific production, it's the project concept. And in fact, you're submitting a proposal to us. You're forecasting activities that can take place within that 12-month window of July 1, 2027 to June 30, 2028. It's a 1-year project, basically, what you're proposing to us. If you're submitting an on-cycle proposal this year, we want, and if all goes well, you'll be recommended for a contract for that fiscal 2027-28 period. Rather than applying to us again for another year of funding, we want you to take a break, and we would ask you, hey, would you be willing to renew your project for a second year of funding, but to repeat your project in concept? And so we want you to apply to us with a project that you can repeat in concept every year, understanding that the topics and themes, specific production names, specific works to be presented will change from year to year. And that's the kind of rhythm and cycle we want folks applying to our grant program to get into with us. Submit a proposal every other year for a 1-year project that we can repeat in concept on an annual basis. So I hope that answers that question. I'm sharing my screen now from the Cultural Grants Program page. Let's now do a little tour of the application itself. So you will have great that you're here listening to us talk today. You're going to review these guidelines in more detail. You're going to watch the video of this thing. You're going to take a look at those scoring criteria that Serena previewed a moment ago. Because before you put words on the page, upload files, upload artistic samples, it's important to have those panel scoring criteria in the back of your mind. We ask panelists to review proposals in its entirety, and then to parse out those elements of your proposal that speaks to each of those scoring criteria. So everything you're typing, you should always be thinking about, ooh, let me put in this sentence. This sentence is going to boost my community impact and relevance score. Ooh, this file is going to really demonstrate my program's impact and my artistic merit. So think about what you're uploading and typing into the page, because they should always be relating to those scoring criteria. All right, so let's go and apply and see what this platform looks like. All our proposal material exists in this platform called SurveyMonkey Apply. This is the landing page. So if you are brand new to this platform, your very first step is to click on the register button. When you register, it is important that you set yourself up as, the individual person representing a nonprofit organization. We have other programs that are open to individual freelance artists. As Serena noted earlier, that's not an eligible type of applicant for this grant program. You have to be a representative of a local nonprofit organization. So make sure you set up your account as one that is representative of a nonprofit organization. Once you've done that, you can log in with your login credentials, and it'll bring you to the landing page. And so I want to highlight, a common oversight folks have when they log in for the first time. By default, it logs you in as your individual account. And as an individual, you're not allowed to apply to our program. So in fact, if you log in, you click on programs, you click on the cultural grant program that's currently live, you will not have a green apply button here, because right now it thinks I'm an individual person. So the way to make sure that you're able to apply is to use this pull down menu and select the organization that you set yourself up as representing. And now you'll see the name of your organization up there. And then all of a sudden you can see additional access to the program. So if I click on programs, cultural grant program, I will see a green apply button there. I actually have one started and I have it pending, but I can still apply to here and start and use a second application if I want to. And that's because you're allowed to, if you're an arts organization, that is, you have a mission statement that's emphasizing the production and delivery of art services to the public. You're allowed to submit up to two proposals to us, as long as one of them is an outdoor festival or parade. If you're, on the other hand, a nonprofit with a non-arts focused mission, maybe you're a social service agency that does a community festival every year, you're limited to one application in that outdoor festival category. So I've started an application. Let's take a peek at it. On SurveyMonkey apply. The main page is a sort of like a checklist of things to do, listing all the items that comprise a complete application package. These are the items listed here. There's a handy kind of like task tracker system here where a check mark means you've filled it out and marked it complete. Half moon icon shows that it's still in progress. Grayed out circle means you haven't done it yet. Um, I recommend folks to start from the top and have a peek at the main part of your application package, which is the grant proposal itself. So I'll highlight some of the common pitfalls and that we see with with the applications, and through an example here. Um, in this example, let's presume I am planning to do a free and low cost concert series. So we start off by, no surprise, sharing some basic information about my organization. Add alternate contacts. We know staff shit transitions can happen. You're submitting this application now. You're not going to hear back from us until the spring in the May or June timeframe. In case people have moved on from one organization to another, good to have a generic kind of like uh, not generic, a general email for your organization to ensure that someone will see this once you hear back from us, because there can be staff transitions. We know that. Project type is very important. We have our outdoor festival parade categories as the first options here. As we mentioned earlier, we think of them in tiers. The very small ones are those with 500 or fewer attendees, pardon me, the last time it was presented. Uh, Most of our outdoor festival and parade events take place are tier two in size, anywhere between 500 and 2,000 attendees the last time the event took place. And we have a few very, very large events. These are like the super large street festivals where you're closing down multiple blocks, 2,000 or more people. Under the outdoor festival parade category, we ask you to kind of indicate, to what extent your proposed roster is reflecting new artists, new acts, new musicians, new performers as compared to last time. We want to see at least 30%, as we alluded to earlier. Um, if you are doing an indoor artistic project or a sail cape project, we do want you to indicate the artistic discipline that that project is going to emphasize. So this is where on cycle and off cycle come to play. As we mentioned earlier, this is the year we're convening dance experts, music experts, theater experts, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary arts experts. Hence, those are on cycle proposals and the others are not. Budget size is also super important. There is some overlap with the operating budget categories. We want you to decide how you want to be viewed by the panelists. Maybe you're operating at around $1 million, $1.5 million. You can technically choose to apply as a large budget organization, or you can select the mid-size budget button as I have here. Um, it can potentially move you to a different panel depending on how you view your organization, and it helps kind of color the way the panelists read your proposal. Do you want to be the big fish in the little pond, or the little fish in the or a really really big pond? That's a way of telling that to the panelists. Grant amount request. And so you saw from that very text heavy slide we looked at earlier, there's a lot of things to consider before you determine how much to ask of DCA. So you need to have done a little homework before you add this number. You need to have a sense of what your last operating budget is for your most recently completed fiscal year. You have to have at least an estimate of how much your project's going to cost, not to be mistaken for your organization budget, how much your project's going to cost. It's before you determine how much to ask. Um, Allowable grant request calculator is a great tool. Please use it. Um, Serena, is my screen showing okay? The calculator?
It is, yes.
Okay, great. So as we mentioned, if you do a little homework, you have a sense of what how big your organization is operating budget wise, how much your project is going to cost, and what type of project you're going to do. This will help you it'll take that text heavy slide and do all the math for you. It'll tell you exactly what you can ask of us. So let's do an example. In my example, I'm a mid-sized organization. I think I'm operating at 85K or something like that, $85,000 or so. And I've done my organizational profile form, and there's a specific line there. It is line AAF. Pardon me. 8AF is the line number where total revenue less in kind is listed. And I did all the math, and I'm operating at an $85,000 level. So great, I'm putting that in. I am doing a series of indoor concerts. It's going to be an artistic project. And I'm going to do a series of, let's say, 10 concerts, price tags around, I don't know, let's say $30,000. Okay, and then now the calculator would tell me exactly how much I'm allowed to ask for. So in this example, it shows that I'm allowed to ask DCA for no more than $8,500, and I have an explanation here of how this tool arrived at that dollar amount. So in this example, it took 10% of my annual operating budget of $85,000. And as determined, I'm allowed to ask for 10% of it, $8,500, towards a project that costs 30K. So once I've verified that dollar amount, I can go back to my application form and enter, let's keep it $8,000 in this example, with confidence because I know I've used the calculator to confirm it's allowable. That's a common pitfall. Folks submit proposals where they're asking for way too much money, or they're asking for dollars amount that doesn't make sense. They ask for dollar amounts that don't align with their project budget. So do take advantage of that grant request calculator. It takes off one potential pitfall from your submission. These two following questions are new this year. Two very short questions, and they're the result of a common pitfall that we see with the proposals in recent years, where folks are submitting proposals where they're not going into enough detail about the specific purpose, topics, or themes that they're going to explore with their project. We've been in many grant panels where the reviewers are reading these proposals. They read one and they have a sense of what the concept is, but they have no idea what the topics, themes, or purpose of the project is. So we want to help folks this year kind of like start off on a strong footing with our panelists by telling them right up front the main purpose of this particular project is one of these things. So I ask you to find which of these which of these purposes are best aligned with your project. In this example, let's say I'm doing a concert series that's intended to highlight and premiere new works by local LA composers. So this is the clear button that I'm going to pick in this example. I'm premiering new work by with LA artists. And this second short text field, we want you to tell us within that purpose, within that theme, what is the specific topic that you want to explore with your project. So let's say in this example, I plan to do a spring concert cycle celebrating joy and rejuvenation, premiering new works by LA-based AAPI composers. So with these two questions, I've already given the panelists a sense of, oh, great, so that I have a very clear topic and theme I can chew on, and it helps them understand the strategy and purpose of your project so much better if you're giving them a topic and theme to work with. Subsequent questions are pretty straightforward. Tell us about which council districts your organization is headquartered. Note that you're either in one of the 15 council districts in LA City or potentially somewhere else within LA County. As we talked about earlier, in order to apply, your organization needs to be based somewhere in our region, which we define as LA County, proposing services in LA City. So hence, you have the option of clicking the button here and entering something like Santa Monica, Culver City, Arcadia, ensuring that you are selecting one of the 15 council districts or more for where your services are going to take place, because your project activity must take place within the municipal boundaries of LA. Okay, so that's another common pitfall. It is still surprising to see how many applications we get every year for projects that are primarily taking place in Pasadena, taking place in Long Beach, taking place in Santa Monica. These are all ineligible because they don't take place in the city of LA. So keep that in mind. Your project needs to take place within LA City. There's also an option here for organizations who are proposing projects that are primarily broadcast, live streamed, or online in nature. Those are okay, with a very important caveat that the actual production of the presentation is taking place within the city of LA, and that you have some sort of strategy to capture meaningful information about the people tuning in, listening, watching, and experiencing the online offering. We can't support organizations who are producing their events primarily outside of LA City. Imagine you are, you're a music organization, you're a choir built based in Pasadena. You're doing a concert in Pasadena, and you're broadcasting it, reaching a wide audience. Not allowable because that's not being produced in the city of LA. So please keep that in mind. Project start and end dates. Another common pitfall. Please don't find yourself doing this by entering a start date and end date that simply mirrors the allowable 12-month window. We give you this 12-month window because that's the big window where you're allowed to do activities. But as we said earlier, most projects, 95% of our allowable projects, subaward projects, take place in the 6-month or less window. If your start and end dates span more than 6 months at a time, you're probably thinking more program versus project. So think about a way to chisel away at the scope of your narrative so that you're doing things within a 6-month window. In this example, I'm doing an AAPI concert series on during AAPI Heritage Month in May of 2028. So I'm proposing a start date of May 1 to May 31, 2028. Proposed impact, take stock of all the people that you're going to engage in your project. A common pitfall here is folks are not accounting for really all the people that they're going to touch and engage and really serve as part of a project. There are folks who do workshop-based, like skill building, learning types of activities, and they'll definitely count the number of project participants engaging in those workshops, but they forget to account for the audience at the very end of that process, where there might be a showcase, exhibition, or presentation of the participants' work. So we are interested in all of the people that are engaging in as part of your project: your staff, your volunteers, your contracted artists, anyone you're paying through honoraria and stipends, the performers, the practitioners, and of course the people tuning in, the butts and seats, people experiencing and enjoying your work. That's an important number once we add these two together, because it goes toward our calculation of how much your project costs on a cost per head basis. So we want to understand all the people involved in your project. The next section is where we talk about the narrative elements of your proposal. So you might also be seeking grants from other funders in our region, LA County. Maybe you're based in Santa Monica, Culver City, West Hollywood. They have similar grant programs where there's shared questions there. So we've indicated those with this little starburst icon. You might be very well positioned to simply copy paste any pending or submitted proposals you have with those other agencies here, because they're very general questions about your organization. I'll highlight really quickly here for the mission statement. We're interested in the board approved mission statement for your organization. So we simply want you to copy and paste what that short mission statement for your organization is. Avoid the temptation to include language in here that might be not a mission statement for your organization, but maybe there might be a mission or vision statement for a specific program that's produced by your organization. We don't want to see that. We want to see the mission statement for your legal nonprofit organization. It's one of the first things the DCA grant staff does when we receive these proposals. We read your mission statement. We want to make sure that if you're proposing an artistic project, that your organization has a board-approved mission statement that's around producing and presenting art service to the public. History and programming is pretty self-explanatory. Just please emphasize if you have a long history organization, focus on the most recent few years. That's what panelists are interested in seeing. Planning and leadership, tell us about the key administrators, artistic visionaries in your organizations. Tell us how decisions are made and things like that. Community core audience is very important, especially as you help tee up the stage for panelists to understand the connection between your mission, your audience, and your project, and the topics and themes you're going to explore. Panelists love to see a through line across all of those key elements. So when you're talking about your community and core audience here, you're teeing it up for the panelists to understand how your proposed activities will result in great impact and service to this core audience. Panelists love to understand how artists and other creative professionals are being compensated as part of your work. We are an arts and cultural funder. And if you're coming to us with an artistic project, there needs to be a big part of your project that involves payments to artists. So tell panelists how you go about doing that, the scale of artists' involvement and how they're compensated accordingly. Panelists want to know that. We have lots of organizations as well who work with a wide range of volunteers. It it could be worth noting here, the volunteers you work with, but I caution you from submitting a proposal that is too heavily reliant on volunteer labor from artists. Panelists understand one of our priorities as a funder is to stimulate jobs in the creative sector here. So uh, if a proposal doesn't really talk about paying artists at all, it can be seen as a big disconnect between your proposed activities and our funders as a priority. So think about how you can structure a project that is around paying artists. And then finally, the project narrative. This is where you give us the technical specifications of the activities you are doing. If you're coming back to us as a returning grantee to submit a new proposal, a great place to start is to take a look at the attachment B from your last LA City DCA contract, where it reads in a very generic, boring way to produce and present X number of things in the such and such council district. That's a great way to start your project narrative because it's a very clear and concise way of pitching to the panelists what it is exactly that you plan to produce. So in this example here, I am seeking DCA's support to produce and present a series of 10 free or low cost concerts at XYZ Concert Hall in Northridge and the ABC Senior Center in Panorama City to take place during AAPI Heritage Month, May 2028. That is such a very clear outline of planned activities for the panel. So please, it's so important we actually give you some starting language here to work with. We want it to be that clear and concise. All the subsequent sentences and paragraphs allows you to kind of delve into the details of what that experience is. What in this example, I might talk about what those concerts are, what those concerts are going to showcase. In this case, it's going to be new works by local AAPI composers. I might talk about how those composers were selected. I might highlight one, two, or three of those composers and the nature of the work that we're going to premiere. It's all a wonderful opportunity to allow panelists to draw that through line between my organization's mission, my intended community, topics of my project, and how they're all connected, and how it helps advance our mission and meet DCA funding priorities. Give the panelists a sense of what that audience experience will be like, discuss the venues, describe their connection to the neighborhoods you're going to be going into, describe the connection between the neighborhoods and the audiences you're going to reach, talk about the desired impact of these concerts, what the purpose of these concerts will be, and what the results will be. You'll have an opportunity to, in the subsequent section here, talk about impact in particular. Panelists love to see applicants with clear strategies for measuring their progress and impact on their intended audience. Things like pre and post surveys, questionnaires, feedbacks, opportunity, interviews with past participants. Tell the panelists how you're going about measuring your organization's impact and specifically how this project helps your organization achieve those organizational goals. Next section is super important also, where you get to tell us about the key artists, key leaders, administrators, guest artists, that you're going to be involving with the project that you're proposing. Um, Very common is that we see applications, they do a good job highlighting the folks on their payroll, the in-house talent of their key leaders and administrators with good bios. Areas that we can always see more improvement on is more forecasting effort on the specific guest artists that you're going to be involving for this specific project. If this project is focused on the local AAPI composers, I better have some sample composers to brag about in this section, so I can tell the panelists about the experience, the accolades and bona fides of these composers, how their new work is going to be great, and how it connects to the topic and theme, and how it connects to our organization's mission. So we want you to think about spotlighting some of the key folks that you're going to be paying for the next project. I know for lots of organizations that can be very challenging because we are asking you to look many months in the future. Even if it means looking back at who you paid last year, are there people there that you plan to involve again the next time you're doing this project? Because they were so wonderful in their work and role last time you did this project that you want to invite them to participate. It gives you an opportunity to highlight them, highlight their credentials, and to show panelists that you have a great bench of high caliber artists and leaders involved next time you're going to do the project. All right, I'll pause there before we go into the project budget, see if there's any good questions.
Ben, I want to note and maybe ask Serena as well. I was pulling links to answer some questions, so I did not see you go over the grant calculator. We had a comment saying the actual calculator couldn't be viewed. Serena, were you able to verify that, or if anyone in the chat wants to share if the calculator was on screen?
I, but I,
Do you want me to share the grant calculator? The thing with the grant calculator is in order to move through, you're going to need to plug in some information. So I can kind of show you what that looks like.
Yeah, I think the request was that when that tab was shared, it was not shown on the full
hmm,
webinar screen.
Okay. Do you mind if I kick you off of the share screen, Ben?
um, Go ahead.
Um, So when you click on the link, it's going to take you to this.
I can
Um,
see the screen.
Perfect. All right. So this gives you an overview and then continue, and you would pick your organization budget size and then enter your total revenue. And I can enter some things here so we can see what would happen next. Then you've got your project type and then your project revenue. And I'll select some things here. And then it would show you that my max allowable request is $5,000 and then a summary of the things that I've selected. Does that work for everybody? And then I'd be able to start over just in case I wanted to.
Great.
Thank you. I also shared the website overview of that calculator in the chat as well.
Thanks. We have a question as well around projects that historically rely on the open call process. Thank you for the question. It is indeed a challenge. And in the ideal scenario, by the time you're submitting a proposal to us, writing your grant proposal, you will have already concluded your open call process, thereby allowing you to be very detailed in describing the artists, the works that you're going to be presenting. Um, that's the ideal scenario, and we do see that sometimes. And those proposals tend to do a lot better because they're so much better equipped with being able to articulate the topics and themes, interconnectivity between their mission, audience, and and proposed activities than folks who do not have that information. Absent that, it is incumbent upon you to articulate some sort of proposed topic or theme without having completed your open call process. Maybe you've convened a very thoughtful strategic panel selection committee comprised of ABC arts experts, local local, producers, local artists, etc., who will serve on the selection process. You can include the bios and CVs and details about those people. You can state that you're going to assign the committee a particular topic and theme to help guide their selection process for the upcoming year. There are ways to do it, but in the end, it really is kind of a workaround. When we're asking you to come to us with a project where you're forecasting a specific topic, theme, list of artists that you're going to pay, and so forth. Um, in those instances, panelists are savvy. They will look at your project narrative. They will look at your selection process. They will look at the membership of that selection committee or understand the details of the process. They will look at your artistic samples from the most recent iteration of your effort. They will look at your list of past year paid artists, and they can start to gauge, the quality and caliber of the artists and professionals involved, and kind of estimate, to what extent will the resulting product be able to speak to your stated goals around, advancing your organization mission and reaching your intended audience. So those are some strategies to do it. They are workarounds. In the ideal case, you're coming to us with a specific list of artists and works that you're going to present. All right, so let's talk about numbers. So number one, this is a project budget. Okay, do not tell us about your organization's year-long overall annual operating budget, or even the budget for a specific, initiative or far-ranging umbrella program. If you spec'd out your project narrative as 10 free or low cost concerts, I want to understand the various revenue sources that are going to cover the costs of those 10 concerts and the specific expenses associated with those 10 concerts. So that's a number one pitfall in this section of the proposals. Folks are just proposing a budget that's not aligned with the narrative section that we just finished going through. So make sure they're with the numbers here linked directly to the specific project narrative that you entered in the page before, and it links directly to the payments of all the artists that you listed in your key staff and leadership bios. So that's pitfall number one. Pitfall number two is not taking advantage of these budget notes when you're outlining the various budget lines for your project budget. Be very detailed here. Panelists love understanding where the numerical values that you're entering here are coming from. So we've listed for you all of the likely budget categories, line items that for a successful project. You do not by any means need to fill out every single line. Find the lines that are applicable to your project. And oftentimes there's some overlap in categories here. Admissions and ticket sales, for example, are two lines. Maybe there's a logical way why those two might be distinct based on your organization and the type of project you're doing. Maybe you're doing maybe you want to make a distinction between, if it's a series of concerts, maybe it could be a difference between, a season pass, the revenue you'll get from selling season passes, versus individual tickets to individual concerts. That's an example of divvying it up. So in my example here, I have $1,000 projected ticket sales. In my project concept, I'm producing these 10 concerts as pay what you wish, but I'm hoping I'll get at least on average across, let's say 800 attendees, I'll average about $1.25 per person, and that's how I'm getting $1,000 in planned ticket sales. As I will also anticipate 5 of my board members contributing a modest $200 each towards this project. I'm anticipating some donations from private individuals. That could be donations online, in person, through your fundraisers. I'm anticipating some foundation funding. I'm anticipating as well, fingers crossed, I'm going to get my entire grant ask. So I'm going to enter that dollar amount I entered on page 1 of my proposal of how much I'm asking of DCA into my budget. That's pitfall number 3. There's lots of folks who take the steps of drawing up a very detailed project budget, but they forget to include this line for DCA. So you basically told us you're going to do a project without any of our support. Don't do that. So make sure your grant ask is here. Any county money from the LA County Department of Arts and Culture. It's a great matching source. A lot of our grantees here at DCA are also grantees of LA County. So it's great to apportion an amount from your annual OGP grant from the county towards your DCA project. That can work too. If you're lucky enough to get some state money, you can enter that, and so forth. In-kind contributions are allowable as well. As I mentioned earlier, our matching funds can be met with a mix of cash contributions as well as in-kind. So some in-kind support is okay. And in this example, I'm anticipating donated concert space by my project partners. All right, all that added up together equals $16,000 in revenue, which means my expense section of my budget should be exactly the same. We want a budget here where we don't have a surplus or any deficits. So $16,000 income I am forecasting will cover $16,000 in proposal expenses. And this is how it kind of breaks down in my example for 10 concerts. I'm apportioning a portion of our artistic director salary towards this, and I'm calculating it this way. Good to explain to panelists how you're doing that. Some of our administrative teams' salaries as well, fringe benefits based on the proportion of these salaries include that as well. We expect to see lots of artist fees. So if it's not commission fees, in this case of new compositions, if it's other artists and performers that are non-salaried, these lines should have dollar amounts. Uh, we expect to see if you're an arts organization, certainly some of your own in-house staff on payroll, their compensation outlined here towards the project. And the vast majority of our other projects should also have non-employee payments as well. You'll note there are certain categories here for which DCA funds cannot be used toward, such as catering and hospitality, maybe some travel and insurance, permitting costs. These are not allowable uses of DCA funds, but we understand they are oftentimes essential parts of a successful project. That's why it's a good thing that DCA funds do not pay for 100% of a project, because we hope that you would cover those necessary expenses using your matching sources. Do the next step by really articulating that knowledge and awareness to panelists, by telling them, I know $500 in catering and hospitality is now allowable, but these snacks and beverages will be paid by my matching sources. You're telling panelists that you understand the DCA guidelines and restrictions and are aware of that. And it goes a long way in letting panelists know you know what you're doing and proposing a project budget that's realistic and practical. All right. So here, all those things add up to 16K. So that's a good thing. And there's some automatic calculations here done by the platform. Based on the $16,000 project and the number of people I'm planning to engage, my musicians, my composers, my staff, my volunteers, my audience, I'm getting a project cost per head of just under $20, which is really, really quite thrifty for a project like this. So that's another great check to show that you're submitting a project that is right-sized for DCA. We alluded to earlier, we support projects of a wide range, low-touch experiences like attending, a day-long summer festival for a couple of hours and grabbing a hot dog, listening to some bands and going home. Projects like that we see produced at approximately, $10 per head or even less. On the other end of that, we support really deep learning, transformative projects where, let's say, you're a dance educator, you're working in a nursing facility with elders, working with residents who have movement difficulties, but engaging them in dance education and opportunities to move over a series of weeks, and it culminates in a public showcase of residents dancing and performing for the public. That's going to be a much more expensive project than $10 per person. And we see those easily exceeding $100 per person, $200 per person per head. And there's a whole wide gamut of projects in the middle of that. So it's up to you to decide, are you delivering a project that's commensurate with this cost per head ratio? Because that's a way of us assessing the bang for the buck, the value of your event, and how whether or not it meets our requirements for doing an event that is non-expensive. Okay, I hope that helps clarify some examples there. All right. After you've done your budget, you've completed the proposal portion of the application. I'm going to mark that as complete. Let me real quickly go through the other segments of the application here and just highlight a couple of key details. The financial and programmatic profile form, we spoke about that earlier. We want to see 2 recent fiscal years. If you're an emerging arts organization, that means you're operating for less than 20K, or you have less than 2 years of operating history. You don't need to submit this. Please upload a copy of your 990 instead. Similarly, if you are a nonprofit organization that's doing an outdoor festival or parade, uh, and you are not an arts-focused organization, you are also exempt from this requirement. In lieu of that, you can upload a 990 as well to show us that you have at least $20,000 in operating history. Okay, there. Uh, Financial snapshot variances section is an optional field. Most of our applicants can probably give our panelists a great overview of their organizational capacity and health through the programmatic profile form. If there are some key things you want to highlight for panelists that are particularly unique, this is a good section to do that. Maybe the last completed fiscal year was a particularly bad year for your organization, really showing revenues well below what they have been for the prior years. You could use this section to show panelists that your organization's on the rebound. You're doing much better this year. In your current fiscal year, you can upload balance statements, income statements, profit loss statements, giving panelists another snapshot of your current status if you feel like it's important to have as context in addition to your programmatic profile form. IRS designation letter is pretty self-explanatory. The only pitfall I'll highlight here is we're interested in the letter from the IRS. We're not interested in the California designations or any other kind of designations of your nonprofit status. We need to see the IRS letter confirming your 501c nonprofit status. We need to see that legal name on that letter match the name of the organization that's applying. That's another one of our checks. We've seen proposals where someone's applying as a local organization, but they've uploaded an IRS letter showing a New York City-based organization. We'll look up the nonprofit IRS 990 from the last year. We see that the filings have all been done in New York. We want to see that alignment that confirms that IRS letter legal name matches your organization name, and that you're operating and based in LA. Board of Directors, the only pitfall here I want to highlight is that please use the Excel form that we provide. It has the number of columns that we want our panelists to be able to see. Avoid the temptation of just uploading a pre-made board list that you have ready to go in your grant writing folder. Please take the step to use our Excel form and to upload it in its native Excel format. Artistic work samples. This is a performing arts year. We're going to get lots of proposals from dance organizations, theater organizations, music, choral organizations, multidisciplinary performing arts organizations. Please think about how you can upload videos as artistic samples. Videos go a long way in kind of like demonstrating artistic excellence, giving panelists a sense of what the experience is like as a member of the public, gives panelists a sense of the excitement in the space that really cannot be easily communicated through a static image. Especially with performing arts, please think about how you can upload up to 3 links to some key artistic samples. General guidelines for your videos. Try to avoid any kind of make it easy for the panelists to access the videos. Give them a link they can simply click on and it automatically plays, as opposed to like a password protected Vimeo link where they have to look at your notes to type in the password to see it. Avoid super extended or super long videos where it's not clear where you want the panelists to go and start and end. You might give them a start time and end time if indeed you have to upload an especially lengthy video. Generally speaking, our panelists will spend no more than, I think, about 5 or 6 minutes on artistic samples alone. So help use that kind of overall limitation in being very selective of what you're sharing with them here. it's good to give them a, rather than super splashy marketing focused sizzle reels, a video that gives them a sustained sampling of what it is to be in the audience, seeing your work, what it is to be in the room in the middle of a workshop, what it is to be in a space, seeing your star teaching artist facilitate conversation and workshop. Those are the kind of things that wow panelists, and they're really the things they're looking for. So do think about that. Especially if you have a project that's really emphasizing uh, uh, skill building, peer-to-peer learning, it's a good idea to include samples of what that workshop experience is like, how healthy and robust the conversations are between students and trainees and the lead teaching artists, how effective are the workshop facilitation skills are, as well as what that culminating showcase experience is like. All right. Those are so 3 links. There's a space where you can type in some contextual notes, giving panelists a sense of where this video is from. Give them a start time, end time if it's a long video. And if absolutely needed to use passwords, this is a place to type in the password to access that. One last thing I'll note about the video links is do note you're submitting this by August 28th, our application deadline, but panelists will not be looking at these samples in all likelihood until December or January, maybe even February. So make sure that there is some everlasting ability for folks to access these links in the proposal that you're submitting. If for whatever reason you do want to upload static images, maybe you're a visual arts organization, maybe a museum submitting an off-cycle, visual design proposal. We understand that static images can oftentimes be more convincing and persuasive. So in that instance, you have an opportunity to upload up to 10 static images. I have a question here regarding professional development and operating expenses. Professional development refers to investments by your organization to build the skills and expertise of your staff. So that could be paying for trainings, workshops that you're sending your staff, contracted employees, volunteers to for their professional development. Which groups should fill out this form? I will assume you're referencing the financial and programmatic profile form. The folks who are exempt from completing the financial and programmatic profile form are emerging arts organizations. So these are organizations with fewer than 2 years of operating history. So basically freshly minted 501c3 organizations, or organizations operating at less than 20K. So those are both emerging arts organizations for the purpose of our grant program. The second group of folks who are exempt from this form are non-arts nonprofit organizations. So these are social service agencies, housing agencies, community service centers, organizations with a mission statement that does not emphasize the delivery of art services. The only way those organizations are eligible to apply for our program is you're proposing an outdoor festival or parade. And if that is you, then you are exempt from this financial programmatic profile form. We would like to see a 990 instead. Please explain what we consider commissioned work. There are organizations, you could be, let's say, a choral group, a chamber ensemble, where you are paying an artist, a composer, a playwright to produce a new work. That would be a commissioned work, where you are paying them to produce that new work. All right, moving along to supplementary materials. We got 10 more minutes from our 2-hour estimate. I think we can do this. Super important section in your proposal. Let me see here. Beyond attachment A is super important. This is where you give us the venue specs of where your activities are going to take place. So yet another opportunity for you to double check that you're proposing a project within the city of LA, because your attachment A will list the specific addresses, name of the venues where you're planning to do your work. We shared a link earlier about where to access the map. You can use that map to double confirm that your venue is within the city of LA limits. We want you to talk to the venue operator at each of these venues, so you have a sense of, you have a contact there already, which is great. So we want you to be in contact with these proposed locations. We want to have a sense of how many times you've presented work there. Gives panelists a sense of how long-standing a partnership with the venue is. We're weary. We invite new partnerships. Like maybe you're a touring organization, you want to dabble into reaching a specific audience in the far west San Fernando Valley, and you're in communication with some venues there and some local partners there. That's fine, and if that's part of your project, great. You'll indicate that you have 0 to or far fewer years of experience presenting there. That's helpful context for panelists to understand. Another good thing to get at with these exploratory conversations with venue managers is to have a sense of how many other DCA applicants or grantees are considering that space. One of our goals as a municipal funder is to have a wide array of pins on the map in the city of LA. It's great to see some really treasured venues in specific neighborhoods and communities in our city kind of emerge as a major arts hub. But one of our goals is to really spread the arts, especially to places where they're absent or scarce. So it's good for us to see if you're proposing a project somewhere where other arts organizations are not, and then good for you to know as an applicant whether or not you're proposing a venue that would be exciting for us to see, or more like this is a venue that's well overserved and overutilized in our eyes. Um, be wary as well of venues that might also be applicants themselves for DCA grants. Oftentimes, if panelists are faced with a decision in ranking, services taking place at a local venue, they might privilege the host native venue operator for producing shows or experiences at that location. So it's good to be aware of those various variables as you're thinking about which venues to propose for your project. If you're proposing an online virtual broadcast project reaching a wide array of audiences across the city, we want you to use this opportunity to state your strategy for how your event that's produced within the city of LA will reach LA audiences, and what strategies and tools you're going to use to capture meaningful information about those audiences. Prior year paid artists is a great way to really brag about all the various creative professionals you paid the last time you did this project. This should be an easier attachment to prepare as compared to the one in the proposal where you're forecasting many months in advance, right? So especially if you're finding that your proposal list of artists is particularly short, it's important to go all out with this attachment so you show the panelists a wide range, high quality, high caliber list of local professionals that you're paying with that you would be paying with DCA funds. Okay, press material. You've spent a lot of time bragging about yourself, bragging about your programming, bragging about your impact, using your voice to articulate all those wonderful things about your organization. Recent press material is a great opportunity to show panelists there are other voices and groups willing to brag about you. So if press material is a great way to do that, absent press, recent press, which I know can be difficult to find for many applicants, do find an unsolicited letter or email or message from folks who've experienced your programming in the past that you can upload here as an outside voice attesting to the quality of your programming. Attachment D is for projects involving any sort of workshop, skill building type of activity. So if you're doing workshops, even if you're not a SailCape project, maybe you're doing after school programming taking place at a school, anything that involves some sort of learning arc, it's a good idea to upload a sample of a lesson plan, of a specific workshop summary, so that panelists will understand and appreciate the level of rigor and learning in your planned activities. So even if you're not a SailKit project, upload something here if there is indeed some sort of skill building educational component to your project. And if you're a SailCape applicant, definitely you must upload something here because you're doing in-school programming that has to be aligned to state visual and performing arts learning standards. So and we want to see a very rigorous sequential learning arc and outline for what those workshops will generate. Those will be reviewed by folks familiar with teaching in the school system. Art specialists at LA Unified, other arts educators will be very familiar with curriculum style, with what good curricula look like. So make sure to upload a detailed curricula here if you're proposing a CLK project. These last two attachments are optional, but because you are attending a webinar, you want to be one of our top performing applicants in this competitive process, you will take advantage of these optional opportunities to, again, share more outside voices about how wonderful your organization and your programming is. It's a really a missed opportunity not to take advantage of these optional uploads here, where you can showcase all the various non-arts partners you're working with, social service agencies, community-based centers, housing centers, other community-based nonprofits who might not have an arts mission, but you're very much partnering with in the delivery of your programming. Let's say, for example, this concert series in this sample proposal is intended to reach youth who were formerly incarcerated or had some interaction with the criminal justice system. It would make sense that in my list of arts partners, I'm going to have some great social service agencies here who have like-minded missions to reach that very same audience. It's a great way to show the panelists that you are a community-based organization with a partnership mindset, working with the logical partners to make sure you're reaching the audience that you want to maximize that impact. So take advantage of that as well. And a letter of recommendation, more opportunity to showcase the extent of your impact and quality of your programming. If you're doing an emerging playwrights workshop series, we would expect that there would be a wonderful testimonial here that you can upload showing how your program helped catapult that person's career in the theater circles here in Los Angeles. That kind of testimonial goes a long way in showing panelists that your program really does make an impact. All right, so those are the supplemental items. I think we've highlighted all the super key important parts of an application proposal here. And once all those required check marks are there, you'll have an opportunity to submit. But of course, as any good grant writer will do before you click that submit button, you will go over every single section again. You'll ask a colleague to read it as well. You want to look for typos, grammatical errors, especially if you've prepared your responses on the Microsoft Word document to take advantage of the spell check, grammar check, word count features, and you copy pasted things in here. Double check that you've copy pasted everything you wanted to, that nothing was inadvertently truncated. All the file upload sections, a pitfall that we see some applicants fall into is uploading. They had intended to upload a letter of recommendation, but it wound up being their list of prior year paid artists file instead. So you've missed an opportunity to showcase a really important document because you inadvertently uploaded the wrong file. So check for things like that. Those are easy mistakes to avoid with just another second, third, or fourth review of your materials before you do, in fact, click the submit button. Once you've done that double check and triple check, you can click on submit. You'll get a message confirming submission. You'll get an automatically generated email confirming online receipt of the proposal with the very next steps. We do ask that you mail to us via snail mail a shortened version of your narrative proposal so we can have that in hand, along with a certification statement from a board member showing that confirming intent to carry out the project if recommended for funding. So you'll get the instructions for doing that step 2 in the email confirmation that you'll get. All right, I think we'll pause now here. Serena, if we can put up our closing slide. Another opportunity for some Q&A before we go out and enjoy our evening. It's just about 7 p.m., but we'll stick around if we have some questions. Brenda, Serena, are there any outstanding questions I might have missed as I was flapping my gums?
I am typing a reply to the first portion of Alexandria's Sail Cape question. However, I'd appreciate your input on the second portion regarding in-school assemblies.
Okay. Oh, thank you. In-school assemblies is a great thing to ask about because Serena mentioned earlier, public schools are not public spaces for us. DCA is not primarily an education funder. We fund free and low cost opportunities that are open to the general public. And in-school assemblies are problematic. I can't drive up to a DCA sponsored in-school assembly and just walk right in. I have to go to the main office. They're gonna ask me if I have a child enrolled. It's not easy. It's not a public space. So in-school assemblies we do not consider as public events. Now, if you are doing a school-based project for us, where you're working with kids in the school and you are doing an after-school, evening, or weekend performance, um, that works for us. And as part of that project scope, you want to bundle in some in-school assemblies in service to the students enrolled. That's okay too. It can be part of the process, the educational process for the youth, but it's not the public event that we want to zero in as the thing that we want to zero in for an eligible DCA project. I hope that's helpful. A question regarding small organization project support. I think that simply refers to your organization size. So small organizations we define as groups who are consistently above 20K, but below, I think the threshold is it 50K? Serena or Brenda, help me out. Double check my number there.
It is a large threshold that overlaps with
Hundreds, so even more.
mid-size.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
100.
consistent, I would say if you're consistently over 20K and you're flirting with the six-figure level, for us you're probably a small organization. So our support for small organization is defined as that, what you see on the slide now. 20% of your last completed fiscal year budget, up to $10,000, keeping in mind because of our one-to-one matching requirement that we can never pay for more than 150% of your project. So I think my sample proposal highlights a potential smaller organization because I was at 85K in that theoretical example. So at 85K, I could have also asked for up to 10K towards a project of at least $20,000. So I would have been more strategic to select the small organization button. It would have allowed me to ask for more money. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for spending their evening with us. Serena, Brenda, and I are thankful for your willingness to expand your knowledge about DCA's grant program, and we hope it helps you shape a more strategic and competitive proposal. Deadline is August 28th. You can reach out to us at dca.grants@lac.org with any questions between now and then. We get gradually grumpier as the deadline approaches because we get inundated with lots of last minute questions. So the sooner you get your questions to us, the more likely we'll be able to get back to you in a good amount of time. And do know we have the deadline is technically, right before the stroke of midnight on the 28th. So technically 11:59 p.m. on August 28th, Friday. Brenda, Serena, and I are clocking out for the day around, no later than 5 o'clock. So if you do want a response to any last minute questions, you got to get it to us before then. All right. Um,
And I
with
also
that,
just would like
yes,
to share to our first-time applicants, we also have a hard copy deadline. If you want to
that's
go
right.
over that briefly, Ben.
Thank you, thank you. As I mentioned, please prioritize the August 28th deadline. That's a very hard deadline. There'll be no extensions. We work with a very, very tight timeline, and we can't extend that. Um, After you submit your online submission, as I mentioned, you'll get a confirmation email outlining some next steps for you to take to print out a shortened version of your narrative to mail to us. And we want to see a postmark deadline on that by the following Wednesday. So I think that's September 2. Um, that deadline we're a little more flexible about. So for whatever reason you need an extra week to mail in a proposal, not a bad thing. It's the August 28th deadline that you please prioritize. Um, all right, and one last question. We'll take this question from Sergio regarding transdisciplinary projects. Okay, so a transdisciplinary artistic project is one where it wouldn't logically be best adjudicated by a peer panel of music experts only dance experts, only theater experts. You are proposing something that is an interesting fusion of two or more traditional art forms. Maybe it's avant-garde contemporary dance with live poetry reading, or projections taking place, where your list of paid artists will have, multidisciplinary artists with expertise in poetry and dance and movement, where you're really presenting a wide range of art forms. So a good test is take stock of all the artists that you're going to be paying. Does it make sense for them to be adjudicated by a dance panel, music panel, theater panel, or a panel that's composed of more multidisciplinary artists with practices that really explore avant-garde fusions of multiple art forms together? Okay. All right. I think with that, we'll close. I want to thank everyone again for taking the time to chat with us. We're going to post a video of this hopefully by tomorrow, so you can reference this and the prior webinar recording as well. If you want to do some independent learning and you want to drill down into some additional details about this process. Thank you again.